Welcome to my vertical obsession, and today we are talking about Call Me Alpha, which is located on ShortMax. And when I was looking this one up, this one had two other names to it on ShortMax. One of them is My Destined Alpha Mate, and the other is Stealing My Icy Alpha. And I don't remember those being names for this one. So it was very interesting to see that. And I've kind of noticed that a little bit on ShortMax, is that some of the older ones that I watched kind of have dual names, or they have put out not two different versions, but like two different cover photos for the video, for the series. There are a couple that have two different versions. They're the same story, but they kind of like added some scenes in there, or changed the opening. And I've only kind of really noticed it on ShortMax, especially with one of them that I went back and was looking at, which was like Flash Marriage to My Alpha. Because I remember there was two different ones for that one, and how it started was different, and that kind of always confused me how that happened. But it's also kind of interesting to watch them both and be like, okay, well, what's different, and did it actually change anything throughout the storyline? And while I have not watched the other ones for this one, I've only really watched the Call Me Alpha because that is the one that I remember. I may go back and watch the other two and see if anything has changed. I kind of just wanted to stick to the one that I knew for this review for right now, but now that I know that those are out there, I kind of want to check them out and see what has changed, or what they might have cut out / added in. Because I think when I was looking for this one, I stumbled on, I think it was My Destined Alpha Mate, and the way it started was a little bit different than when I opened or played the one that I know, which is Call Me Alpha. And that's the one that I remember watching, and so there are some differences, and like I said, I'll probably go back and check them out and see what they might have changed. But this is one of the ones that I first saw Seth in. I think this was also one of his first ones, if not his first one. But I'm not sure. But I just know that it was the first one that I saw with Seth, so I've kind of followed him since this particular series. And this one was always an interesting series to me, because it was a werewolf story, but it introduced this type of wolf called a stealer, and I don't think that's ever been played in a series since. So I don't know if this was just kind of like made up for ShortMax, and they kind of like were the only ones that were going to use it and keep it, or if it is something that is within werewolf lore. But I kind of like the concept of the stealer. So the whole point of the stealer wolf was they were kind of like a rogue wolf, but they had this possibility that any wolf, male wolf who had recently lost their mate, would think that she was their mate and destined to be, which could complicate things because that wasn't true. But if she was to find her true mate, then she wouldn't steal or be stolen away. I think that's how it was said. Yeah, it says that, she had to find her true mate, or any widower mate would think that she was their true love, but if she found her true mate, she would not be stolen. And of course, after she found her true mate, which was Aiden, Seth's character, who was the alpha, he refused to claim her because she was a rogue, and he didn't think that she was, I wouldn't say worthy, but strong enough to be Luna. So he kind of kept her at arm's length and wouldn't claim her. Which, of course, kind of complicated things, because now if she was to interact with a wolf who happened to be a widower, they could see that she was their true love, and it would just cause chaos. Which ended up happening when she met with Titus, who is one of the border patrol wolves under Aiden. He had just lost his wife, and Ashira, who is the stealer and Aiden's mate, was going to offer her condolences and talk to him as, Luna of this pack. But when she met with him, he realized she was a stealer, and he was drawn to her, but he knew that she was not his wife, and she would never be his wife, so he wasn't trying to take her. But her bodyguard, who was good friends and part of the pack and part of Aiden's loyal wolves, was there, saw this, realized she was a stealer, and Ashira convinced him, don't tell Aiden, I'll tell him myself, but I gotta do it in my time, basically. And of course, Aiden ends up finding out in the worst possible way, and he is upset with Seth that he kept this from Aiden, and he kind of punished Ashira by locking her in her room and not letting her leave or go anywhere. But he ended up kind of bringing back, realizing that she wasn't trying to trick him, that she did love him, and that it wasn't a ploy, because his family had issues with stealers before, and his cousin was the son of a stealer, so he had issues with stealers, and that's why he was very upset when he realized that Ashira was a stealer, because he thought that this was all just a game. Like, it happened with his father and his uncle, I believe, and how that all went down. And then, when to complicate things more, another pack kept causing issues, which was Elon, who was the pack alpha, and I wrote it down, and I can't read what I actually wrote as their alpha, their pack name, but he was causing issues and trying to upset this peace treaty that Aiden was trying to put into place with all the different packs. And Elon eventually attacked Aiden's pack with rogues to distract him so he could kidnap Ashira and kind of turn her against Aiden. His original plot was to have Ashira have his baby, but she was already pregnant with Aiden's baby, so instead, when he talked to his mother, she was able to give him this potion that would cause Ashira to forget Aiden and think she was in love with Elon and that she was pregnant with their baby. So in a sense, it was how a stealer was stolen, which was something that Ashira was warned about, is that a stealer could be stolen, and she did not want to be stolen. But this potion, since it was magic, she couldn't fight it. And then in the end, with the help of the Wolf King, he was able to bring Ashira back to Aiden, so that way she remembered him, and that they could be happy. The only thing is that their baby had this strength because he was an alpha and she was a stealer, and it would be this strong and powerful alpha. So the Alpha Wolf King said that he would take the child's strength, that the Alpha Wolf King would take the child's strength in order to bring back Ashira's memories of Aiden and their love. And Aiden took that deal because he wanted Ashira back. And he felt that this was the only way. The baby was not to be harmed or killed. It just happened that this powerful strength that this child would have would no longer be something that the child had in the end. And Ashira understood that, and she was not angry with him for doing that. And it kind of ends with the two of them happy and watching over their baby. And also, one of the things that it ended with, which was very weird because I never saw a follow-up, was that it said that there would be a season 2. Which is not something these series do. I've never seen a series actually do that. I think the only ones that I've seen since are Taming the Heiress, because it actually said part 1 on Candy Jar, so you knew that there was going to be another part. Plus, it was similar to The Arrangement, which is another series that they have, and that one had 4 parts to it in the end. So I think they were kind of following it up with that one, with the multiple parts. And Taming of the Heiress only ended up having 2 parts, which I feel like maybe they could do more, which I would actually really enjoy if there was more to that one. And then the other one that I know off the top of my head that I've seen is Love and Blood, which said coming soon. Or not coming soon, but to be continued. So those are the two that I know off the top of my head that had, like, this one had something that said that there'd be more to come. And this one was like an earlier one because it came out, I want to say, in like 2023, around the same time of True Luna and Atticus Fawn, the unwanted bride of Atticus Fawn. So I think maybe they planned to have more for this one, but they just never did. But I don't know. I just remember that, and it still shows when you play the series. It still shows, season 2 coming soon. But I've never seen a follow-up to it. I'm also kind of curious how they would follow up to that one. Because, it ended happy. It ended on a good note. There was no real cliffhanger to that one. So I'd be very interested to see how they would continue with that one. So one of the things about this series that kind of always confused me, and I've always had this question, and rewatching it reminded me. So there's this one scene that always kind of confused me in this series, and when I rewatched it, it reminded me of it. I always had that question. So when Ashira and her friend Lucy are kind of running away because Lucy's in a terrible relationship with an elephant and she wants to escape, and Ashira said that she would help her. So they're running, but Ashira ends up getting stopped by Zeke, who is Aiden's cousin and the son of another stealer. And he wanted to talk to Aiden about helping his mother because she was sick and Aiden's blood is the only way that could help her. So he figured Ashira would be able to help her or help him help his mother. And before we see this happen, it's said that Ashira's been missing for 3 hours. And when we see her again, she's laying in bed kind of all confused and looking injured and kind of weak. But when they actually show the interaction between her and Zeke, they're just talking, and then Nick finds her not long after. So now my brain looks at that and goes, I feel like those two don't match up. So it's like, why is she in bed? Why did they say she's been gone for 3 hours? And why does she look like she was injured when the flashback didn't show any of that? And I was just, it didn't feel like those two scenes connected the way they should have. And that always kind of confused me how they fit together. I could understand if maybe she was hurt unintentionally or she fell or something, but it just, those two scenes never made sense on how they connected to me. And it was always something that just kind of annoyed me when I would watch it. One of the other things that also kind of annoyed me with it was the whole wrapping up the story at the end, because we go from Elon using the potion to steal Ashira to Aiden having Ashira at their house, and it's months later and she still not remembering who he was. So I kind of always hated that they did that they just kind of jumped ahead. And there was no like, hey, him saving her. And I feel like maybe there was a scene that I'm remembering of him finding her and her being upset that Elon was dead. Maybe that was in one of the other versions of this. Now I'll definitely have to go back and watch them and see if that is in there. Because I feel like that was. And for some reason I feel like I remember watching that. Even if it was kind of like a flashback scene. Because that's how I feel like I remember it. Is that it was more of a flashback scene. That they still did the whole like jump forward between Ashira being stolen and Aiden being upset that she's upstairs and, you know, things haven't changed type of time jump. But I feel like there was a scene where he's kind of remembering when he found her. And I don't remember it being there in this version I watched recently, like that I rewatched. So yeah, definitely. I'm going to have to rewatch the other ones to see if it exists. Or if I'm just losing my mind. But to go back to that was something that just kind of did annoy me, that it just jumped ahead, you know, that you don't see him going to save her or killing Elon, which I can also understand too, because it may not have been like in the budget, or it may not have actually been in the script. But I feel like it kind of would have been nice to see just a little bit of that fight. But that's just from my perspective. Because, I mean, you were building up to this fight and building up to these issues only for it to be not there. So it was always something that I just like wish could have been in the series. And the last thing that I kind of wish was there was Aiden going to see Ashira when she was in bed and her remembering him versus her running out to him and remembering him that way. And while I loved that, you know, they were reunited and she remembered him and all that, I kind of would have loved to have seen it as he wasn't sure if it worked or if he got her back, but goes to see her and she remembers him and they embrace. Because I feel like that would have been a little bit better storytelling wise than her rushing out and remembering him. But that also might be something that I prefer more when watching something. I don't know. It just felt a little off. That scene of her running out type of thing. But I was happy that she remembered him right away, that it just, they got their reunion and it wasn't delayed or anything, so I was happy about that one. I just wasn't a fan of the way they reunited, kind of. But all in all, this still was a really good series. That it was one of the early ones that I watched, and I know one of the things that I remember from watching it was when Ashira and Aiden were in the, I wouldn't say garden, but they were kind of like in the backyard, walking through their garden, pool area, or spring area, before they kind of went for a run. Ashira was all emotional and kind of going through a lot. I remember when I first watched it, that was like, she's gonna be pregnant, isn't she? Because it makes sense. And of course, when that was mentioned to the other Steeler, and then Elon mentioned that she was already pregnant, I was like, I was right. I saw that coming. And it just kind of made sense of how they were doing the story, that would be the outcome. And sometimes it's one of the things that I like to do with shows and series is kind of like guess where they're going with things. Just to be like, I was right. And I know when I'm watching shows or even movies with my parents and I go, oh, okay, they're gonna do this and it's gonna happen this way, and then it actually happens. We always joke, it's like, oh yeah, we write for these things. It's just because sometimes these series and storylines that movies and TVs use, they've done them so many times that you can just anticipate how it's going to go, or you can see what direction they're going in and just kind of pick it up and be like, okay, I know what's going to happen next. But it's all out of fun. And just one of the things that I like to do every once in a while is kind of joke or figure out where the story is going to go. So that was one thing that I could kind of figure out, that, oh, she's going to end up being pregnant because she's talking about how she's just so emotional and she doesn't know why she's so emotional. Which is actually kind of a little bit better doing it that way, because sometimes these shows do it a stereotypical way, which is basically the woman feels like she's going to be sick, throws up, and then goes, oh, I'm pregnant. Because that's not always how women find out that they're pregnant. That's just the stereotypical way. And that's the way that they like to write it into series sometimes. So it was kind of nice that they did it a little bit different. But all in all, like I said, this was one of the early ones that I watched. I very much enjoyed it. I also felt like this one was one of the steamier ones to start out with. And if you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. But it was a good one, and it was one that I will continue to watch, kind of like True Luna and Atticus Vaughn, because it was one of the first ones that I watched. Especially on ShortMax, because I know I started a lot of the series watching them from ShortMax, so I have a bunch that I've watched, and I'm gonna go back and watch them and end up talking about them on here. And I know one of the ones that I just watched last night, and I know like one of the ones that I just watched or rewatched last night was the back of The Unwanted Bride, and I will do that one at a later date, but I just remember watching it last night and being like, wait, there's like a whole section of this that I don't actually remember being in this. So it'll be fun to recap that one. And it was kind of also like going through them all, being like, okay, so which ones do I really want to rewatch now, so that way I can write up the reviews and talk about them. So, because I do want to go through older ones, talk about them. Like I said, this is going to be newer ones and older ones put together. This particular one I wanted to do because it is one of the first ones that I watched, especially one of the first ones I watched with Seth. So I wanted to kind of do like a little rewind. I have a whole bunch that are newer that I'll be doing, so we're just going to go through different ones. And I said, while I love this one, if I was to rate it, I'd probably rate it lower at like a 7, maybe like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Only because it was like earlier on, so I think kind of editing wise, it wasn't the greatest. But again, I might be viewing it a little bit differently because I went to school for production and editing, so I kind of pay attention to certain things a little bit too much when I shouldn't. I should just enjoy the story. Story-wise, I enjoyed it, with the exception of the glossing over the fighting and getting Ashira back. But besides that, storyline-wise, I enjoyed it. And I love this idea with the werewolves of a stealer. I kind of would love to see that come back, even if it's with ShortMax. I would love them to maybe like do something more with that, bring it back. I don't know. And again, I don't know if they had plans to do another series, like a follow-up to that one. Maybe, hopefully there might be, or they still might have plans. But I did enjoy it. And it is a fun one to kind of rewatch and be like, this is how it all started. Like I said, Atticus Vaughn and True Balloon are the first two that I watched. This is definitely in the first group of ones I watched as well, but I know those are the very first two that I watched. But this one was just within the first like year of watching them, maybe even the first couple of months of watching them. But again, here we are. So this was Call Me Alpha, which again is located on ShortMax. It is also under the name My Destin Alpha Mate and Stealing My Icy Alpha, if you are interested in checking it out for yourself and have not seen it. So, and this has been my vertical obsession. Until next time.